Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 2, season 1 of What If Deku Had Black Whip Early. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the story. Boom! A large explosion sent debris flying everywhere. Metal crumpled, being distorted with great force as a burly figure crashed into the train headed to Shinjuku while it was passing through Hasu. The faces of the passengers were ridden with confusion. That quickly changed to horror when they realized what had just come aboard their train. It was far from human. With grayish-green skin, the figure had a long torso. Attached to it were equally long arms with incomplete fingers. But that was one of its least terrifying features. Its see-through head set the monster's brain on full display, and those mindless eyes that seemed to focus nowhere gave off a feel that it could kill without batting an eye, literally. To those in the train, it was a monster, but those who knew better called it a Namu. The Namu loomed over a person that was sprawled across the train. It was a hero who had been rammed by the Namu into the train. The male bled and groaned weakly, unable to move. The Namu reached out to take hold of the male and finish the job. Stay put. Gran Torino ordered his student Izuku Midoriya, who was about to bolt into action, to help. The old-timer wouldn't let his student face such an ominous figure while he was here. Instantly, from the holes under his boots, pressurized air shot out, propelling him forward with a big burst. He dashed to the right side of his train, propping his legs onto the side of the train with more wind pressure. He shot to the right, moving forward rapidly, coming to the Namu with a strong kick to its chest. The force sent it backward. Then Torino flew back to the side of the train, shooting off with a greater intensity to ram his being into the Namu. Gran Torino blasted off the train, with the Namu through the hole it created. They sailed through the air, crashing into a building far off the rail tracks. Just as the train came to an abrupt halt, Izuku dashed from his position towards the hole. Standing on the tracks, he looked out to the scene of the city of Hasu. Fires set off at different places, buildings destroyed with sirens, and everyone was yelling. What happened here? Izuku muttered to himself, shocked, wondering what occurred. A student of Yue, Izuku strived to become a hero with the power he had inherited one for all. Many days ago, Yue had held their sports festival where fierce events were held. He had proved his mettle, but not to the extent he wished. Having defeated Todoroki, a rival of his, he was unable to continue fighting due to the damage to his body by using the Black Whip quirk, which was why he resolved to use the internship program to find a way of using his quirk without incapacitating himself in battle. It was such a problem to him that he hadn't gotten any requests from agencies to intern with them. That was before Gran Torino, the former master of his idol, the #1 hero All Might, had taken him under for internship, and with just 3 days training with him, Izuku overcame the risk of using it before by using a minute percentage that his body could handle. Also learning to use it in various situations, though most of the usage weren't attacking, he was ecstatic to try it out. Constantly fighting Gran Torino would pay its dividends in helping to achieve that level with his quirk. Now that he found himself in this situation, his thoughts brought him to Lita, his classmate who was interning here in Hasu. During the sports festival, Lita's older brother, a hero, had been brutally assaulted by the menace hero Killer Stain, a villain who hunted and killed heroes. His brother was alive but not unscathed. Tensei would possibly never return to the field again. Midoriya worried about Lita's mental stability, but the lad had reassured him he was fine, though it was hard to believe. I wonder how Lita's doing. He hasn't replied my texts yet, Midoriya thought to himself, glancing at his phone before he put it back into his pocket. He'd deal with that later. Now he had to go see what was happening and possibly find Lita as well. The green-haired lad readied himself with his clenched right fist. He aimed at the top of a building. Activating his quirk, a black tendril shot out from his knuckles, latching firmly onto the building. He grasped the tendril, jumping off the rail tracks. Midoriya became suspended in air. Quickly his legs came together, arching his body backwards. He swung his legs out, shooting forward into the night. This was one of the techniques he had invented while training. It had come to him when he realized the similarities between his quirk and Zero's. While fighting Torino, he studied how he zipped around so quickly without warning, going where he pleased. It was obviously the work of quick decision-making, to ensure he was aerial and did not tumble and crash, something he combined with his notes on Zero's quirk to birth his technique. Okay, Midoriya ... you got this, just release the whip once you finish the swing and shoot a new one, he said to himself, trying to psyche himself. It was the first time he was doing this out in the open. Though he'd practiced, the real deal was entirely different and scary at the height he was. Once the whip shot him upwards, he timed himself, retracting the whip, now floating momentarily. He aimed to shoot another tendril at a building, but his aim was off. Midoriya now plummeted downwards, his arms and legs swinging wildly as his heart thumped, his brain trying to assert the situation. Taking another aim, the tendril shot at the building, this time hitting its mark, saving him from impending doom as he bounced up and down trying to stabilize himself. I almost died there. I have to be more careful and be more accurate with my aim, he said to himself with heavy breaths. He was scared but pulled ahead, shooting off with whips, getting better with each shot. So many things had drastically changed concerning him. Originally, he thought he'd have super strength like All Might, but had gotten this quirk instead. Still, he hadn't quite grasped how to use it, and in his moments of confusion he'd used it similar to All Might's fighting style. Not pretty wise for a quirk that was mostly a supporting quirk. But it was as equally powerful, and with each passing day it grew clearer to him how he should use his quirk. Even his suit, which was green, was changed now, as he has dyed it black, similar to his quirk's color, but his respirator and boots remained the same. Sailing through the air, he came across a scene of various pro-heroes combating another Namo. There's another one. What's going on? Izuku thought to himself as he dropped down. He saw Manuel, the pro-hero whose agency Lita was interning with, but there was no sign of Lita. I'm looking for Lita, where is he? He asked Manuel, coming up to him. Sorry, I don't know where he is. Lita ran off a while ago, Manuel said hurriedly as he controlled a hydrant, drawing out water to put out a fire. Wait, it was Hasu where Lita's brother had been assaulted, and the hero killer was known to strike at a place more than once. Tensei had been the first. Could that mean Lita rushed off after catching whiff of the hero killer for revenge? Izuku's green eyes opened wide in realization of what could be happening this moment. Down in a dark alley, secluded from where chaos and attention of everyone else was, two figures lay sprawled on the ground. One was the hero native. He was hurt, bleeding from stab wounds and immobile. Standing over the other body was the hero killer, with his multiple blades strapped all around him. His shady appearance alone carried such an overwhelming presence it would strike fear into the weak-hearted, acting out of vengeance. That's one thing far from a hero, Stain said. He retracted the blade lodged in the shoulder of Tenya, slowly bringing the cold steel stained with warm blood to his lips. He licked the blade, smearing his tongue with the blood. Stain's quirk took effect instantly, paralyzing the lad. The villain raised the blade up once more, about to strike down and deal the finishing blow. Just as Stain was about to drive his blade home, a black blob slammed into his face with such force he was sent flying. The blob seemed quite malleable and ricocheted the entire alley before dissipating. A sharp sound pierced through the air. A very quick black tendril had shot out. Lashing out, it sent home into Stain's jaw with enough power it sent him flying down in the alley, making a sharp thwacking sound. Izuku stood at the other end of the alley holding his right arm out. His fist was clenched and the whip slowly retracted back to the spaces in between his knuckle. THJS was a way of offense he'd created with the quirk. Utilizing the power and speed of the whip, he aimed and sent the whip flying squarely into a target. The density and strength of the whip coupled with its power and speed was enough to stun and deal minor damage. Tenya, are you alright? Can you move? Izuku said hastily, taking a slight glance at Tenya and the pro-hero while being wary of Stain's presence. No, I can't. He immobilized me with his quirk, I think, Lita groaned. Stain looked on, surprised at Izuku's selfless act. He'd test the boy further to prove his mettle. What will you do, hero? I plan to kill these two, Stain said, brandishing his blade. His brain began to process what was going on. With Black Whip he could easily take both Lita and Native swinging off, but his speed and reaction time in itself was nowhere near Stain. The villain would easily catch up to him if he tried to run, and they'd be in a worse situation. It looked like holding him off was the only option. Stay out of this, Midoriya, it doesn't concern you, Lita yelled in frustration. This was his battle to fight to avenge Tensei. Then how will heroes be able to do anything if that's the case, Lita? Midoriya responded with guts, clenching his fists with his legs apart, his eyes on the villain. HMPH Stain sighed with a smile. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. Stain charged at the lad with great speed, blade in hand. He struck out, slashing horizontally at Izuku while using his dagger to hack down. Once Stain came in mid-range with him, Izuku's hand opened up. He aimed at the wall to his left. A whip shot out, zipping him to the wall. He leapt off it with his body arched backwards, swinging his right leg forward to attempt a strong kick to the side of Stain's head. The villain instinctively raised his left arm, blocking the kick and pushing the lad back with force to destabilize him. While Izuku was unbalanced in midair, Stain swerved right, unraveling his sword to slice him. Bind, Midoriya thought, giving mental instructions to his quirk, telling it what to do. A curved whip escaped from his hand, wrapping itself tightly around the incoming sword. He guided the blade upwards with the whip to change its trajectory and remove it from Stain's grasp. But his grip was firm on his blade. Even though the blade moved up, he wouldn't let go. With the dagger on his left, Stain aimed a straight jab to Izuku's midsection, edging forward with that monstrous speed of his. A sadistic smile written across his lips with his tongue hanging out. Barely Izuku had gotten his right hand in between the blade and his stomach. A projectile whip he used for attacking shot out of his hand, hitting the blade's tip at point blank, knocking it out of Stain's hand. Stain's left arm flew backwards, leaving his chest wide open. With that 5% of Black Whip he was using, Izuku seized the opportunity, firing another whip. It drove into Stain's chest, sending Stain crashing into the opposite wall, simultaneously Midoriya releasing the whip on the villain's sword as he dropped down to the ground. The villain rose unfazed, picking his dagger that was close by. That moment he was occupied with his blade. Izuku lunged forward, aiming to catch him off guard. Whiplaw's words were cut short as he stood just in front of Stain, immobilized, dropping to the ground like a body bag. But how? He didn't cut me, Izuku wondered. Speculations about Stain's quirk implied he had to be cut before his quirk became active. Straining his eyes, he looked up. Midoriya saw Stain's tongue to his dagger, realizing just now that when his hand came in between the blade he had been pricked. It was that blood Stain licked which was why he became immobile, he thought, finally understanding how the quirk worked. The villain walked over to Tenya slowly. This battle was more than one to him. He'd dispose of this too worthless hero and keep that boy alive. He had potential to become a true hero, Stain thought. His sword retrieved now, Stain drew his weapon back for the final blow. Suddenly a column of ice grew across, with jutting spikes aimed to hit the villain. Rising up along with the ice was a wave of fire. You should have been more specific in your message, Midoriya. I was late because of that. The half-and-half boy Todoroki said, a cool mist escaping his lips. Earlier on, Izuku had sent him his location hurriedly since he realized Todoroki was in the area, and now it had just saved Lita. The battle between Todoroki and Stain ensued, with columns of ice and waves of fire. Todoroki aimed to keep Stain at a considerable distance from the rest, but with such speed Stain evaded and advanced easily. Stain saw it grasping him. He drew the lad near, aiming to lick the blood off his face, but as he came close, Todoroki's left side, scalding flames erupted, causing the villain to withdraw. Instantly, without delay, Stain went on the offense again, dashing at Todoroki without giving time for him to react. He was a second away from cutting Todoroki. A black whip wrapped Todoroki, yanking him back just in the nick of time. Midoriya had regained his mobility, pulling Todoroki to his side. With this, he surmised there was a probable time limit to which the quirk had various lengths on people. Midoriya listed possible ways the effect could last, wondering what it was as he'd been released earlier than Native and Lita. Yes, you're correct, it's the blood type, Stain said, affirming his hypothesis. Not that it mattered whether they knew how the quirk worked. His goals were close to completion. If he got past this too, those fake heroes would be erased and served as a wake-up call to the hero society. All that pent-up emotions, Lita had been storing all this while flowed out with tears, expressing his regrets to Izuku and Todoroki. If that's the case, then stand up and fight, Todoroki said, urging and motivating him while they lunged in at the hero killer. Todoroki used his ice to set the terrain for Izuku. Whilst attacking hero killer, skillfully Midoriya used those ice shards to propel himself through the alley with his tendrils. He grasped a tendril, holding it like a torture whip, extending it whiplash to crack it down on hero killer. But he was one step ahead. Using the ice to his advantage, he slid low below Midoriya's reach, hacking at him again. This time he cut his leg cleanly. Stain ingested the blood, paralyzing him again. He didn't stop there. With that sliding moment, he slid closer to Todoroki, quickly closing the distance. The lad threw out large volumes of flames to deter him from coming close, also melting the ice field in the process. But Stain was smarter, using his katana as a guide. He dug into the ice, pushing up to his left side. He slid all the way off the side of the ice field, pivoting upwards to Todoroki's right side, avoiding his attack. You're weak in close range, that's why you try to keep me away, Stain said, about to cut his flesh. Reciproburst. Lita's voice rang throughout the alley. He had overcome the effect of the quirk. Quickly sending his engines into overdrive, he accelerated in between hero killer and Todoroki, landing a spinning kick to the side of his face. Great propelling force from the engines sent Stain hurtling through the air. He came crashing down to earth, destroying those layers of ice around. Todoroki smiled slightly in recognition of Lita's newfound will. He grew faster and quicker, throwing blades at Todoroki. Using his body, Lita blocked, taking those blades for Todoroki as the metal pirouetted and lodged into his flesh. Todoroki's attacks now seemed useless. Stain was just rampaging now. He had to quicken his pace and kill those two before the pros arrived. Freeze my engines, Lita said to Todoroki. He could only use Reciproburst once because of the heat and strain it put on his engines, but with the ice it had cooled down, allowing him to use his quirk a bit longer. Todoroki complied, ice forming all over the engines with steam of heat leaving Lita's legs. Midoriya began to regain his mobility once more, rising to his feet gingerly while the effects slowly wore off. He knew they'd have to take Stain down now. With the pace he was going now, he could possibly succeed. It was now or never. Taking his stance, Midoriya stretched forth his arms, clenching both fists. Activating his quirk, Midoriya brought forth a large multitude of tendrils from between his knuckles, all making their way towards Stain. The villain didn't pay much bother to them. He adeptly hacked away at them, knocking them away from him, but Midoriya kept on going. The lad redirected each tendril knocked away at a faster speed. Beads of sweat rolled down his face as he focused, concentrating on what he was planning. The hero killer fended off the offense quite easily for the first few rounds, but with the large numbers and increasing speed, even he was quite taken aback, and while he fended off, one another grabbed him until the tendrils had restrained him. Stain wiggled furiously to free himself, but it was no use. The tensile strength and power of the whip could bench press a bicycle effortlessly as he'd tested, thanks to the quirk acquiring enormous strength from being in One for All. There was no way Stain was escaping that. Leader readied himself to attack. He crouched low to his knees, his engines revved with such ferocity the ice melted. He timed Stain to the moment Midoriya immobilized him. Go, Midoriya urged Lita to deal the decisive blow. Thank you, Midoriya, Reciproca burst, Lita said. He shot upwards as he sailed through the alley. Lita drove his right knee into Stain's chin, the metal of his suit clanging against the jaw as Stain with such force Stain did man flips as he was sent landing ungracefully. But that wasn't all. A huge wave of fire was sent his way from behind, colliding with Stain and burning him. The icing to top the cake. The villain was knocked out completely. They had won. Lita and Todoroki both expressed their surprise with how much Midoriya had grown using his quirk. He blushed, stuttering as he spoke, not being used to praises. It was a hard-fought battle, but this experience showed Midoriya how far he had come with this odd quirk, Blackwhip. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer of this video and editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.